Hey there, Pastor Rob here. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of Walking in the Footsteps of Faith. Today we are taking our journey from the city of Philippi, where we left Paul and Silas, to the city of Thessaloniki. Now you'll remember in our last video we looked at how Paul and Silas had been imprisoned in a Roman prison cell, and they had been beaten and humiliated, and yet God broke them out of prison and set them free. And from there, they were able to travel from Philippi to the city of Thessaloniki. Now, the city of Thessaloniki is about 100 miles or so from Philippi, and they would have traveled along the Egnatian Way. That was an ancient highway that ran through much of Macedonia. It's really a beautiful highway even today. You can still see remnants of that highway. And as you travel from the city of Philippi along to the city of Thessaloniki, you see a lot of beautiful scenery. It looks a lot like maybe Central California or even northern Washington State, if you're familiar with that. And so Paul and Silas make that journey, and they arrive in the city of Thessaloniki, which is in Macedonia. Today, there's not a lot left of Paul's visit to the Thessalonians. Thessaloniki is by and large a modern city, but of course it has ties to its ancient history as well. But most of the sites where Paul would have been are no longer around. There was a fire about 100 or so years ago that destroyed many of the sites with ties to the Apostle Paul. What you do notice about Philippi, of course, is that it's a city that is located on a harbor. And there's a long beachfront and a boardwalk that allows you to walk along, and you can see much of the Aegean Sea. There is what is known as the White Tower. This is a building that dates about 500 or 600 years past, and it gives you a beautiful overview of the city. And you can see it's a modern city. It's a busy city with a lot of tourism and a lot of really beautiful sights to see. But unfortunately, many of the sites that would have ties to the Apostle Paul are now lost to us. So I'm standing here in the harbor of the city of Thessaloniki. The city of Thessaloniki was founded in about the year 315 BC by King Cassander of Macedon. He named the city Thessaloniki after his wife, and the city was it was pretty steeped in Greek culture for a very long time. Unlike nearby Philippi, which was much more of a Roman culture. By the time a couple hundred or so years before Christ, near about 100 BC, the city was caught up in a series of civil wars in the Roman Empire, and the city of Thessaloniki actually took sides with the Roman government. And so the Roman government actually became very appreciative and supportive of Thessaloniki, and Thessaloniki was supportive of Rome. And so the Roman government actually gave Thessaloniki its own status as a capital. It gave them much more freedom than other cities had. And so as a result of that, the city of Thessaloniki was known as a pretty patriotic city. They had become very supportive of the Roman government and the Roman Empire. And that's important because when Paul visits the city of Thessaloniki, as it's recorded in Acts chapter 17, things don't go very well for Paul. Paul is accused of being sympathetic he's accused of challenging Roman authority. The charges brought against him by the Jewish people were that Paul was presenting another king besides Caesar, and the Jewish people who brought those accusations against Paul knew exactly what they were doing. Paul had really never challenged or defied Caesar, but the Jewish people knew that if they made it sound like Paul had done that, they would be challenging the strong Roman sentiments of the people of Thessaloniki. And so that's exactly what they did. And as a result of that, Paul and his colleagues were dragged into the city square here in Thessaloniki. And they were mistreated, and essentially they were expelled from the city. And very quickly after that, they leave and they head for Berea, and then after that, they head for the city of Athens. Today, there's not a lot left of Paul's visit to Thessaloniki. There aren't too many ruins, there aren't too many monuments or things that are tied directly to Paul. But you can look around, and we'll pan around, and you'll see that the city of Thessaloniki, the harbor remains a very active port here. There are ships out in the port, and pleasure craft as well. Not too far behind me is a modern highway, and in Paul's day, the Ignatian Way would have also gone through this. That was another highway that went through this city. Paul's ministry in Thessalonica, he spent a good deal of time visiting with the Jewish people and teaching in the synagogue. But he also was known for spending and investing his time here with the Thessalonian Christians. Paul dearly loved the people here. One of the qualities that characterized his ministry here was, as he said in his letter to the Thessalonians, he said that he came not just to present the gospel, but to share his life with them as well. And so Paul developed a deep bond. He came with a very tender and caring heart for the Thessalonian Christians. One other feature, one final maybe note, is that the Thessalonians were confused about the return of Christ. There was a lot of talk even among the Roman Empire about when would Jesus return and when would the Messiah come and so on and so forth. And so as a result of that, there was a lot of confusion among believers about the return of Christ. And so Paul spends a great deal of time in both his letters to the Thessalonians clarifying and explaining the return of Jesus.
And so once again, Paul is forced to leave a city really before he's ready. This was difficult for Paul. He leaves Thessaloniki because he judges that it's the best thing to do. But he has a deep concern for the Thessalonian Christians. He's concerned for their spiritual well-being. He hasn't been there long enough to really establish good leadership, but he knows that it's better for him to leave. And so he makes his way on to the next city, the city of Athens. But as he travels and as he leaves, the people of Thessaloniki are weighing very heavy on his heart. So he leaves behind Silas there in Thessaloniki to continue his ministry, and he's hoping to hear a good report from him once Paul arrives in the city of Athens. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Walking in the Footsteps of Faith. We'll pick it up next time in the city of Athens, and we'll find out what does Paul hear of the church in Thessaloniki, and how does Paul bring the gospel into one of the philosophical strongholds of the ancient world. So join me next time. Thanks for watching.